The sound of the phone tore through the stillness of the night. It was 2:03 a.m. I remember because the red digits on my bedside clock burned into my eyes like tiny coals as I reached for my phone. My heart jolted in that awful primal way, the way it only does when a call comes at an hour that means nothing good. Mom. Mom, please. It was my daughter, Emily. Her voice was cracked with terror, barely human. I could hear her gasping for breath, like she was either running or crying, maybe both. Emily? Sweetheart, what's wrong? Where are you? He found out I know. The line crackled, breaking her sentence into shards. I sat straight up in bed, the cold air clinging to my skin. My husband, Mark, stirred beside me, murmuring something incoherent. I waved him quiet, every nerve in my body strung tight. Emily, listen to me. Who found out? What are you talking about? But there was only a muffled noise, a bang, and then the sound of Emily's scream tore through the line before everything went dead. I froze. For a second, I couldn't even move. The sound of her scream clung to the walls of my bedroom like a ghost. Then I was up, phone in hand, feet on the cold floor, heart pounding so violently it made my vision tremble. Mark sat up now, alarmed. What happened? Who was that? It was Emily, I said, already pulling on my robe. Something's wrong. She was screaming. I think. My throat closed before I could finish. I called her back immediately. No answer. Again. Straight to voicemail. I tried her husband's number next. Jason. He didn't pick up either. Something was horribly, terribly wrong. I was out of the house within 5 minutes. Mark begged me to wait for the police, but I couldn't. My daughter's voice, that broken, desperate scream, it wouldn't stop echoing in my head. The roads were empty, the kind of dark that seems alive. Their house was only 20 minutes away, but each minute stretched into forever. I tried calling again and again, switching between Emily and Jason, but both lines were dead. When I finally turned onto their street, my headlights cut across their driveway. Jason's car was there. Emily's, too. The porch light was on, but the front door was ajar. That door had never been left open before. I parked crookedly, didn't even close my door, and ran up the steps. Emily! I shouted, pushing the door open with trembling hands. The living room was dark except for the faint glow of the TV. Some late-night infomercial was running, the salesman's cheerful tone slicing through the silence in a way that made the hair rise on my arms. There was a broken glass on the floor, red wine staining the rug. A phone, Emily's, lay beside it, its screen shattered. Emily! I called again, my voice breaking this time. From upstairs came a noise. A slow, dragging sound, like something heavy being moved. I froze, every instinct screaming at me to back away. But she was my daughter. I couldn't just stand there. I moved up the staircase slowly, my breath shallow. Each step creaked like it was announcing me to whoever, or whatever, was up there. Emily? Silence. Then, from the end of the hallway, the door to their bedroom creaked open. It was dark inside. But I could see something, a shadow moving, just barely, against the faint light from the hallway. Who's there? I said, trying to sound steady. My hand was shaking as I reached for the light switch. The bulb flickered once, then came to life. The room was a mess, sheets ripped, drawers pulled out, clothes scattered. A chair was tipped over, and the mirror above the dresser had a long crack running through it, like a jagged wound. But there was no one in sight. Then I saw it. On the wall, written in something dark, maybe red, were the words, "As such you shouldn't have looked." For a few seconds, my mind couldn't make sense of it. Then my body reacted before my brain could. I stumbled back, clutching the doorframe. I pulled out my phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. My voice shook as I told them my daughter was missing, that there was blood, signs of struggle. They told me to stay put, but I couldn't. I had to find her. I searched every room, every corner. The bathroom door was locked. I banged on it, calling her name until my voice was raw. When the police finally arrived 10 minutes later, they had to kick it open. Inside, there was no one. Just a small puddle of water on the tile floor and a fogged-up mirror. But on that mirror, someone had drawn a single letter with their finger. A shaky, uneven J. Jason. My stomach dropped. The officers spread through the house, taking photos, collecting what they could. One of them, a tall man with kind eyes, asked if Emily had ever mentioned trouble with her husband. I hesitated, because the truth was, yes. A few weeks earlier, she had confided in me that Jason had been distant, secretive. He was locking his phone, working late hours he couldn't explain, and getting angry over the smallest things. But she'd brushed it off, said she didn't want to overreact. Now, looking at the chaos around me, I wished I'd pressed harder. While the officers worked, I stepped outside to breathe. That's when I noticed something odd, the faint smell of gasoline. It seemed to be coming from the side of the house. I followed it, flashlight trembling in my hand. And there it was. A line of gasoline leading away from the house, disappearing into the woods behind their property. It wasn't random. Someone had poured it deliberately, like a trail. I called one of the officers, and we followed the trail together. The air was colder here, thicker, the silence almost suffocating. The trail went on for about 50 yards before ending at a small clearing. And in the center of that clearing was Jason's wallet, open, half buried in the dirt. Beside it, a single photograph. It was Emily, but not the Emily I knew. She looked terrified, her eyes wide, her mouth covered by someone's hand. And scrawled across the photo, in what looked like black marker, were the words, "Find me before he does." The officer who found the photo with me stared at it in silence for a long moment, the beam of his flashlight shaking slightly in his hand. He finally said, in a low voice, "We need to get this to the station now." But I couldn't move. My knees had gone weak. Find me before he does. Those words looped in my mind, suffocating me. Are you saying, I started, but my voice cracked. You think Jason? The officer gave a small shake of his head, the kind that said he didn't want to answer. He placed the wallet and the photo carefully into an evidence bag. By the time they escorted me back to the house, more units had arrived. The red and blue lights painted the street in frantic color, flickering across the neighbors' dark windows. I could see shapes peeking out, curious faces, frightened whispers. Inside, one of the officers was talking quietly into his radio. Still no sign of either of them. Blood types consistent with the daughter's records, but we'll confirm. Blood type. I interrupted, but he didn't meet my eyes. I stood there, my pulse racing. Emily was somewhere out there. Maybe hurt. Maybe worse. And Jason, her husband, was nowhere to be found. By dawn, the house was sealed off with yellow tape. Mark arrived soon after, exhausted and pale. He tried to hold me, but I couldn't stop shaking long enough to feel comforted. 2 detectives sat with us in their car to get statements. Detective Riley, a woman with short blonde hair and tired eyes, did most of the talking. When was the last time you spoke to your daughter before tonight? She asked. Yesterday afternoon. She said she was making dinner. Jason was supposed to be home early. Did she sound nervous? Upset? I hesitated. She sounded distracted. I asked if everything was okay, and she said, I think I know the truth now. When I pressed her, she said she'd tell me later. That's all. Riley and her partner, Detective Torres, exchanged a look. What kind of truth? Torres asked. I don't know. I swallowed hard. But whatever it was, it terrified her. That evening, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even close my eyes without hearing her scream again. Mark tried to convince me to rest, but I stayed up scrolling through old messages from Emily, looking for something, anything, that could tell me what she discovered. At 11:42 p.m., I found it. A text from 3 nights earlier, Mom, if anything happens to me, don't believe what he says. I felt the world tilt beneath me. I immediately called Detective Riley, my voice trembling as I read it out loud. She told me to forward it to her and to stay put. But as I sat there, staring at my phone, I noticed something strange about that message. It wasn't just the words. It was the timing. Emily had sent it at 2:17 a.m. 3 nights ago. The exact same time, down to the minute, that she called me tonight. It couldn't be a coincidence. 2 days passed with no word. No ransom note, no new evidence. Jason was still missing. Then, early on the 3rd morning, Detective Riley showed up at my door. She looked like she hadn't slept either. We found Jason's car, she said. Abandoned about 50 miles north, near an old rest stop. His wallet was there too, along with your daughter's purse. My stomach twisted. Was there blood? She nodded grimly. We're running tests now. I wanted to throw up. But then she added, there was also something else. A key. A key. She held up a small zip bag containing an old, rusted key, the kind used for storage units. A faded tag dangled from it, with a number written in black ink, 173. Do you recognize it? She asked. I shook my head. We traced it, Riley said. There's a storage facility off Route 91, about 10 minutes from where we found the car. We're heading there now. I'm coming with you. She hesitated but didn't argue. The storage facility was half forgotten, surrounded by trees and silence. The manager was an elderly man who looked nervous as soon as we showed him the key. Unit 173, he muttered, flipping through his logbook. Been rented for nearly 2 years now. Paid in cash every month. Under what name? Riley asked. He adjusted his glasses, squinting at the page. Jason Miller. My breath caught. The officer opened the unit carefully. The metallic screech of the door rolling up sent shivers down my spine. Inside, it was dark, cold, the air smelled like oil and dust. A single light bulb flickered to life when Riley pulled the cord. And that's when we saw it. Rows of photographs pinned to the walls. Hundreds of them. Every single one was of Emily. Some looked like they'd been taken secretly, through windows, from across parking lots, even inside stores. But there were others too, photos of me, of Mark, of our house. Of birthdays, holidays, times I didn't even know Jason had been there. What the hell? I whispered, stepping closer. In the corner, there was a table covered in notebooks. Riley opened one carefully. Inside were pages of obsessive notes, times, dates, strange scribbles about Emily's routine. But what made my blood run cold was the last entry. It read, she found the file. She knows what I did. I have to make her understand before she ruins everything. File, Riley said. What file? We searched the shelves until we found a metal box labeled Records. Inside were USB drives, old documents, and one small envelope marked for her eyes only. Riley slipped on gloves and opened it. Inside was a photo, one that made no sense at first. It was Emily as a child, about 4 years old, standing next to a man I didn't recognize. He wasn't Jason, but he was holding her hand, like a father would. I frowned. That's not right. Emily never knew her biological father. He died before she was 2. Riley looked at me sharply. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. But as she turned the photo over, I saw something scrawled on the back. A date, July 17, 2001, and the words, the day she became mine. I stared at it, my heart pounding so violently I thought I might faint. What does that mean? I whispered. Riley didn't answer. She was already looking through the next file. Her eyes widened. Ma'am, I think your husband Jason may not be who he says he is. The silence inside that storage unit felt almost alive. I could hear my pulse drumming in my ears as Detective Riley's words echoed. Your husband Jason may not be who he says he is. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Riley didn't answer right away. She pulled out another document from the box, a photocopy of a birth certificate, yellowed and creased. It was for someone named Ethan Cole, born in 1986, in a small town I'd never heard of. Under father's name, it said, Daniel Cole. Riley compared it with Jason's driver's license photo on her phone. The photo we have for Jason Miller matches the file photo of Ethan Cole from an old juvenile record. He changed his name about 15 years ago. My mind spun. So Jason, isn't Jason? She nodded grimly. We think he took on the name after disappearing from his hometown. There's a record of a fire, a house that burned down when he was 17. His father died in it. The case was never solved, but the investigators suspected arson. Arson? My throat tightened. Yes. And the only person who went missing right after was Ethan Cole. I stumbled back, gripping the metal wall for balance. So my daughter married a man who might have killed his own father? Riley looked at me with deep sympathy. We can't say for certain yet. But whatever Emily discovered, it might have been tied to that past. Maybe she found something that linked him back to it. I covered my face, trying to stop the room from spinning. My daughter had loved him, trusted him. She had no idea who he truly was. We drove back to the station, where Riley's team began to cross-check records. They recovered one of the USB drives from the box and plugged it into a computer. A series of folders appeared, each labeled by year. The earliest one dated back over a decade. Inside were images, videos, documents. Some looked like security footage, grainy clips of unknown people entering buildings, talking to strangers. Others were financial statements, property transfers, and bank records under multiple names. Jason, or Ethan, had been living under at least 3 different identities in the past 15 years. What the hell was he doing? I whispered. Money laundering, maybe. Fraud. There are even offshore accounts here, one of the analysts said. But this, he pointed to a file labeled Cole Family. This one looks personal. Riley clicked it open. Inside was a single video file named truth.mov. She glanced at me. You might not want to see this. I have to. The video started with shaky footage of a small, dark room. A man was tied to a chair, gagged. His eyes were wild, terrified. The camera panned slightly, revealing a younger Jason, maybe 20, maybe less, standing over him. The younger version of him was calm, cold. You shouldn't have lied to me, he said. Then he lit a match. I screamed and turned away. Riley quickly stopped the video. That's his father, she said quietly. And this looks like proof. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The man my daughter married wasn't just deceitful, he was dangerous. And now Emily had found out. By that evening, the search for both Jason and Emily intensified. Helicopters swept the nearby woods, dogs tracked possible scent trails, and volunteers combed through backroads. But as night fell again, the forest behind their home remained quiet. I couldn't stay still. I returned there with Riley's permission, flashlight in hand, retracing the gasoline trail we'd found before. I needed to feel close to Emily, even if only by walking where she might have been. Halfway through the trail, I saw something glinting beneath a pile of wet leaves. A bracelet. Emily's bracelet. The one I'd given her for her birthday 2 months ago, a thin silver band with tiny engraved initials. But when I picked it up, I noticed something strange. Taped beneath it was a folded piece of paper. I peeled it open with shaking fingers. It read, "He's not after me anymore. He's after you." The flashlight nearly slipped from my hand. I looked around. The woods felt suddenly too quiet, too still. And then I heard it. A branch snapping behind me. "Who's there?" I shouted, spinning around. No answer. Just the wind whispering through the trees. I started backing away, but then I saw movement, a shadow slipping between the trunks, tall, deliberate. I ran. Branches whipped at my face, the flashlight beam bouncing wildly. I didn't stop until I reached the clearing where the police had set up their search base earlier. But when I got there, it was deserted. The vehicles were gone. The lights were off. For a split second, I thought I'd gotten turned around. But then I noticed the flashlight beam catch on something. A note, pinned to the tree where the police tape had been. It read, "Stop looking, Laura. It was never about her. Laura. My name." I dropped the flashlight, my knees hitting the ground. Whoever had written that had been here after the police left. And they knew my name. Riley arrived minutes later after I called in, my words barely coherent. She took one look at the note and her jaw clenched. "We're moving you into protective custody tonight," she said firmly. "If he's targeting you, we can't take chances." Why would he target me? I asked, but deep down I already knew. Emily had found something that connected Jason's past to me somehow. Maybe it wasn't just about his father's death. Maybe it was about ours. In the safe house that night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The quiet buzz of the air conditioner was the only sound. At 2 a.m., my phone, a temporary one the detectives gave me, buzzed. Unknown number. My heart froze. I hesitated, then answered. A whisper came through the line. "Mom?" It was Emily. "Oh my God, Emily. Are you safe? Where are you?" "I don't have much time," she whispered, her voice shaking. He's not who he says he is, Mom. He killed them all. And now he's coming for you. Emily, where are you? But then she said something that made the world stop. I saw the files. You were in them. The line went dead. The dial tone hummed in my ear long after the call had ended. Emily's last words, "You were in them," looped over and over, a splinter in my mind I couldn't pull out. Riley burst into the room less than a minute later, gun drawn. What happened? I couldn't answer at first. My mouth felt full of dust. I handed her the phone instead. She called. It was Emily. She said she saw files, and I was in them. Riley's eyes flickered, searching my face. Are you sure it was her voice? Yes. My voice cracked. She sounded terrified. Riley took the phone, scrolling through the log. The number was already gone, no record of the call. She must have used a burner, Riley muttered. Or someone doesn't want us tracing it. The implications settled like lead in my stomach. Someone was helping him. Sleep never came. Every sound, the hum of the fridge, the whisper of the curtains, made my pulse stutter. Around 3, the lights flickered once, twice, then went dark. Riley was instantly awake, flashlight in hand. Stay behind me. We crept into the narrow hall. The generator kicked on after a few seconds, humming lowly, but something felt wrong. The air was colder now, metallic. A noise came from the kitchen. A slow, deliberate tapping. Riley swung the flashlight toward the sound. The beam landed on the refrigerator door. Someone had written on it, in what looked like condensation from the cold metal surface. Remember July 17th. My knees almost gave out. That was the date on the back of the photo we'd found, the one that said the day she became mine. Riley called for backup immediately, but when the other agents arrived, the writing had vanished. The metal was clean, dry, as though nothing had ever been there. One of the texts said it might have been a trick of the light. I knew better. Jason, Ethan, was toying with us. By morning, Riley insisted on moving me again. On the drive to a new location, she kept glancing at me, as if trying to decide whether to say something. Finally, she spoke. Laura, did you ever meet Jason's parents before they passed? I shook my head. He told us his parents died in a car accident when he was young. Riley exhaled slowly. The fire records say otherwise. His father died, yes, but his mother vanished afterward. No body ever found. The words chilled me more than the dawn air through the car window. You think she's still alive? We don't know. But if she is, she might be the key to why he's doing this. I turned toward her. Then we have to find her. The new safe house was in a small coastal town, far from the woods. I thought maybe I'd feel safer near the sea, but the constant sound of the waves only made the silence between crashes feel longer, emptier. That night, I dreamed of fire. I saw a boy standing in front of a burning house, his face lit orange. A woman screamed inside, and he turned toward me, not Jason, not entirely. His eyes were too dark, too deep. When I woke, the room smelled faintly of smoke. I sat up, heart pounding. The window was open, curtains billowing. On the sill sat a small seashell, one I didn't recognize. Inside it was a folded note. She remembers you. I didn't scream. I couldn't. The world had gone too still. Riley examined the note later, gloves on, face drawn tight. There are no fingerprints. Whoever's doing this knows exactly how to avoid leaving a trace. I stared out at the gray ocean. What does it mean, she remembers you? Riley hesitated. Maybe Emily's trying to tell you something. Or maybe it's him, trying to make you doubt what's real. But I wasn't doubting. I was starting to remember. Years ago, long before Emily married Jason, I'd been a social worker for a short time. I left that job after a case went wrong, a domestic incident that ended in tragedy. The boy involved had been placed in temporary foster care after his father was accused of abuse. His name had been Ethan. My breath caught as the memory surfaced like something long buried. He'd been quiet, withdrawn, always staring at the floor. I'd been the one to file the report recommending he stay with his mother, despite the warning signs. A month later, the fire happened. Oh my God, I whispered. I knew him. Riley looked up sharply. What do you mean? I was his caseworker. I thought he was just a boy. My hands trembled. I never connected the names. Laura, if that's true, then maybe this isn't random. Maybe he sought out Emily to get to you. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table to keep steady. You think he married my daughter just to punish me? Or to make you see what you did, Riley said softly. In his mind, you took his mother from him. The horror of it settled into my bones. He'd built his entire life, his entire lie, around us. Around me. That evening, Riley stepped outside to make calls. I sat alone by the window, staring at the endless gray sea. The wind howled. The glass rattled. And then, faintly, a knock at the door. I froze. Riley wouldn't knock, she had keys. Another knock, louder this time. I stood, every instinct screaming to stay still, but something, hope, desperation, pushed me forward. When I opened the door, there was no one there. Just the cold air sweeping in. But on the porch lay a small digital recorder. I brought it inside, hands shaking, and pressed play. Emily's voice filled the room. Mom, if you find this, it means he's close. He told me everything. The fire, the names, you. He said you were the reason he became who he is. My knees buckled. I don't know what he's planning, she continued, her voice breaking. But he said the next fire won't be for revenge. It'll be for remembrance. The recording ended with a sound that made my blood run cold, a man's quiet laugh, low and familiar. Jason's. Riley burst back in seconds later, gun drawn, scanning the room. I just pointed to the recorder. She listened, her expression hardening. We'll trace the origin. But he's getting bolder. He wants you to remember him. I looked toward the window again. Out over the dunes, the sea fog rolled thick and white, swallowing everything. For the briefest second, I thought I saw a figure standing near the edge of the water. Tall. Still. Watching. The fog off the Atlantic came in thick as wool, swallowing the shoreline and half the sky. Even the gulls had vanished, their cries replaced by the rhythmic, uneven breathing of the sea. I stood at the window, watching it move, an animal creeping closer. Riley's voice came through the radio clipped to her belt. Patrol confirms we've got movement near the southern dunes. Could be a deer, could be him. Stay inside. But I couldn't. The figure I'd glimpsed an hour earlier hadn't been an illusion. I knew the way Jason moved. Slow, deliberate, as if the world belonged to him and he was merely correcting its course. He wanted me to remember. To come to him. The first time I'd met Ethan Cole, before he became Jason Miller, he'd barely spoken above a whisper. I'd written in his file that he showed detached affect but no violent tendencies. That one sentence, that small bureaucratic mercy, had kept him out of the psychiatric program his caseworker recommended. I'd thought I was saving a child from institutional life. Now I realized I'd set a fire I never saw burn. Riley had fallen asleep in the chair by the kitchen window, her gun holstered but within reach. I left her a note, I'm going to the dunes. The night air was damp and heavy, pressing against my skin as I stepped outside. The flashlight beam cut through only a few feet of fog at a time. Beyond that, everything was suggestion. Movement that might have been seagrass, sound that might have been the wind. Halfway to the dunes, I found footprints. Bare feet. Large. Fresh. The sand around them was oddly neat, as though the tide had pulled back to make room. I followed them until the path ended at the rusted frame of an old lifeguard station, half collapsed against the dunes. Its wooden sign hung by a single nail, creaking softly. There, nailed to one of the beams, was another photograph. Emily again, but not recent. She looked about 12, standing beside me at a summer carnival. Her smile was bright, mine softer, unaware of the man behind us in the crowd. Jason. I hadn't noticed him that day. But in the picture, he was watching us. The back of the photo had a single line scrawled in pencil, everything comes back to the fire. The wind shifted, bringing with it the faintest smell of smoke. I turned and saw a glow deeper in the fog. Orange, flickering. For one terrible heartbeat I thought the dunes themselves were burning, but as I crept closer I realized it was a lantern. Beside it, on a rock, sat a small tape player identical to the one that had been left on the porch. A note taped to it read, "Play me alone." My hand trembled as I pressed the button. At first, only static. Then Jason's voice, calm, Low, intimate. Laura, you keep trying to make sense of things that were never yours to fix. You gave me to her. You left us both in the flames. Do you remember her face? Of course you don't. You erased her from your records. You thought she died. He paused. I could hear the surf in the background of the recording. She didn't die. She became something better. She became me. The tape clicked off. I stood there, the words crawling through me. She became me. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Then I noticed a small card tucked under the player. An address, written in careful block letters. The handwriting was Emily's. Riley nearly strangled me when I returned to the safe house, soaked and shaking. Do you have any idea what could have happened to you out there? She hissed. I handed her the card. This is where he wants me to go. She studied it, jaw tight. An abandoned hospital outside town. Cole Memorial. It was condemned after the fire in 2001. The year of the original blaze. The year Ethan disappeared. We'll go together, she said. The drive out was silent except for the wipers scraping against the fog. The road ended in weeds and cracked asphalt. Ahead, the hospital loomed like a skeleton, 3 stories of crumbling brick, its windows black eyes staring into nothing. Riley parked, checked her weapon, and nodded for me to stay close. The doors hung open, breathing out the stale smell of rot and seawater. Inside, the corridor walls were covered in peeling paint and faded patient charts. The beam of the flashlight caught on something metallic, spray paint, fresh, spelling out, Mother. The word was written over and over down the hallway, until the last one ended with an arrow pointing toward the basement stairs. Riley cursed under her breath. He's leading us. I know, I whispered. He wants me to follow. She hesitated, then motioned for me to stay behind her. We descended slowly. The stairs creaked, each step echoing too long. The basement smelled of damp concrete and ashes. At the bottom, the flashlight revealed a single door, newer than the rest, padlocked from the outside. Someone had scrawled 173 across it in marker. The storage unit number. Riley called for backup, but the radio only hissed. Signal's dead down here, she said. We'll have to cut it. I found a rusted pipe and swung until the lock snapped. The door groaned open. Inside was a room lined with burned photographs. The faces were melted, blackened. In the center stood an old hospital bed. And on it, Emily. She was alive. Barely. Her wrists were bound, her skin pale in the weak light. She looked up, eyes glassy. Mom. I rushed forward, Riley close behind. He said you'd come, Emily whispered. He said you'd finish what you started. Don't talk. We'll get you out, Riley said, cutting the ropes. But Emily shook her head violently. You don't understand. He's not coming. He's already here. The light flickered. Behind us, the door slammed shut. A voice filled the room, Jason's, but it didn't come from anywhere we could see. It came from everywhere. The walls, the vents, the floor. I told you, Laura, she remembers you. She remembers the night you promised to keep us safe. You failed her then. Don't fail her now. The bed began to tremble. Riley grabbed her gun, scanning the corners, but there was nothing to shoot. You saved the boy, the voice said softly. But the mother burned. My knees hit the floor. I tried to save her. I didn't know the house would. Liar. A light flared in the far corner, an old film projector sputtering to life on its own. It threw images onto the wall, police photos of the original fire, then a woman's face, burned and unrecognizable. Emily clutched my arm. That's her mom. That's his mother. The voice grew quieter, almost tender. She said she forgave you, before the end. And I became her forgiveness. Riley pulled me toward the door. We have to move. But as she reached for the handle, the projector went black, and another light clicked on, a single bulb above the bed. Under it, on the sheets where Emily had been moments ago, lay a single photograph. It was me, holding a baby. The date on the back, July 17, 2001. Riley's backup found us 10 minutes later, the door unlocked, the basement empty. Emily was gone again. So was the photograph. No sign of forced entry. No footprints but our own. Later, when they reviewed Riley's body cam footage, the audio was corrupted. filled with static and what sounded like faint humming. A woman's voice beneath it, whispering the same word, over and over. Remember. Riley drove me back to town in silence. When we reached the motel that served as our temporary command post, she turned off the engine and faced me. Laura, I think he's trying to force you to relive that night, the fire, the choices you made. He's rebuilding it, piece by piece. I nodded slowly, staring out at the thickening fog. Then maybe the only way to end this is to remember everything. Outside, the wind shifted again. Far off, through the mist, a single orange light blinked once, twice, like a match being struck. I barely slept that night. The motel walls felt like they were breathing with me. Slow, damp, waiting. Every shadow carried the ghost of that basement. The hum from Riley's body cam still echoed in my head, that whisper looping endlessly, remember. Remember. So I did. I remembered the smell of gasoline. I remembered the mother's voice. I remembered the boy who wouldn't stop watching the flames, even as they devoured everything he'd ever known. In 2001, I was working as a clinical liaison for juvenile trauma cases. The Millers, his family, had been one of mine. Jason's mother, Clara, had severe dissociative episodes. His father had vanished years earlier. The house was filled with clutter and the constant ticking of clocks, all running at different speeds. I'd visited them the night of the fire, because Clara had called me, frantic, saying she'd seen her son's face melt away. When I arrived, Jason was hiding under the table. Clara was holding a lighter. I remember the heat from the stove, the half-filled cans of kerosene she'd used for lamps. I tried to calm her, but she was shaking, mumbling that she needed to burn the sickness out before it spread. I called for help, but the line cut. And when she struck the lighter, everything went white. I dragged Jason out through the side door, I think I did, but the rest is a blur. I told the police the fire took them both. That's what I believed for years. Until he appeared again as Ethan Cole. Until he found my daughter. Now, sitting in that motel room, I realized what Jason meant when he said, she became me. He didn't mean possession. He meant inheritance. He'd grown into his mother's voice, her rituals, her obsession with cleansing the past. He'd become the flame she started. But why Emily? My phone buzzed, an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Static. Then Emily's voice, faint but unmistakable. Mom, I remember the sea. He said we have to finish it where it began. The line died. Riley burst from her room moments later. I traced the signal. It came from the coast. The road was nearly invisible in the fog. The moon hung low and bloodless. We followed the GPS until it showed nothing but blue, the coastline, ending in a stretch of jagged cliffs overlooking the water. And there, through the mist, stood a fire. Small, steady, controlled. Jason. He was kneeling beside it, arms folded, as if in prayer. Emily sat a few feet away, her hands bound but her eyes open, watching him calmly, too calmly. When he saw me, he smiled. You came back. Just like before. Let her go, Jason. He tilted his head, studying me. You always say that. But you never mean it. You let her die once already. Riley raised her weapon. Step away from the girl. Jason ignored her, eyes fixed on me. You remember, don't you? The real fire. Not the one in your reports. The one where you struck the lighter. My throat closed. No. But memory flooded in, images too fast, too bright. Clara screaming. Jason refusing to move. My hand trembling as I reached for the lighter, thinking to scare her, to stop her madness. And then, the spill of fuel, the spark. I had started it. The sound that tore from me wasn't human. It was an accident. I cried. Jason laughed, a sound too deep, too broken. You burned my mother. You made me from her ashes. You think you can end what you started. Riley fired. The bullet struck the sand an inch from his hand. He didn't flinch. Emily spoke softly, almost serenely. Mom, he said I could make it right. He said I could choose. Emily, don't. Jason reached into the fire and pulled out something glinting, a small silver lighter. The same one I'd used 24 years ago. He gave it to me, Emily said. He said if I lit it, everything would be clean again. I took a step forward, my hands out. Sweetheart, listen to me. That's not your choice. That's his curse. He wants you to carry it because he can't let go. Jason rose to his feet, firelight dancing over his face. Half of it seemed burned, but maybe it was just shadow. She understands now, he said softly. Blood must close the circle. It's the only way to stop the remembering. Riley lunged forward, but Jason was faster. He shoved Emily toward the cliff's edge and grabbed me by the throat. His eyes, God, those eyes, weren't filled with rage but with longing. She called for you in the fire, he whispered. She wanted you to save her. You didn't. So now you will. He pushed me toward the cliff. Behind him, Riley shouted something, then the sound of a shot. Jason's body jerked, then went still. He fell backward into the flames. The fire roared up, bright and terrible, consuming him. But Emily was gone. We searched until dawn. No footprints near the edge, no signs of a fall, no body. Just the ocean, vast and silent, swallowing everything. Riley filed her report. Subject presumed dead. Secondary subject missing. I couldn't speak. My voice was somewhere in that fire, burning still. 2 days later, I returned to the cliffs alone. The fog had lifted, and the sea was calm, almost kind. I stood there for hours, trying to feel something. Guilt, relief, anything. That's when I saw it. A shape on the sand below, half buried in seaweed. A small silver lighter. I climbed down, knees bleeding, fingers trembling as I picked it up. The initials were still engraved beneath the soot. C.M. Clara Miller. When I flicked it open, instead of a flame, a folded scrap of paper fell out. It read, in Emily's handwriting, "Everything comes back to the fire. But fire purifies." And beneath it, another line, smaller, almost hidden. "He's not gone, Mom. He's waiting in the remembering." The wind picked up, carrying the faint smell of smoke again, salt and ash, familiar and endless. I looked toward the horizon. For a moment, I thought I saw them both standing there in the mist, Jason and Clara, side by side. Then they were gone. But the sound of the sea changed. The waves began to crash in rhythm, not random, almost like words forming from the water itself. Remember. I dropped the lighter into the surf and turned away. As I reached the road, my phone buzzed one last time. No number, no name. Just a single text. 2 a.m. And then, beneath it, "You missed something in the fire." The screen went black. I looked out at the sea, and this time, through the fog, a faint orange glow flickered once more. End.